welcome to our last Hangout of the semester here at the International College of Frankfurt University. The last Hangout is a more serious one than usual. Since we have had the news the last 2 weeks, we're going to talk about terrorism. And before we start talking, as always, a brief introduction of the today quite small group. So let's just start introducing.
My name is Jonathan from Germany, studying here at the College International Relations in my second year. And yeah, I'm glad I can join you today.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is Alex. I'm studying PPE and I'm in my last semester.
Are you sure?
I hope so.
Okay.
And yes, I'm glad to be joining this interesting topic.
All right. Then I'm Sasha. I'm teaching here, and I'm also glad I can join this topic. I'm also from Germany. What a coincidence! I'm talking about terrorism. Yeah, what I prepared here, not much, because I thought this conversation can go in different ways, so we just go with the flow. But the first thing that I prepared was terrorism, and what's terrorism? Like when I say terrorism, you say
Attack on non-combatants. This means basically that if you're attacking people who are not involved in a conflict physically, like soldiers or military or social service people who, yeah, for example, police, that these are not target of an action.
Okay.
I think terrorism basically more targets non-combatants which are not actually involved in the fighting, but which are somehow a moral base for it.
Okay.
Yeah, terrorism, as every other term in social sciences or in political sciences, suffers from enormous overuse, and everyone understands something completely different under what it means. Still, he mentioned attacking non-combatants. It can also take other forms. It can be an attack only on, public property. It doesn't have to involve casualties, human casualties. And it can take any form, can be committed or at least supported by governments. It can be aimed at governments. It can be aimed at certain groups. I believe the concept is, although like I said, the term is used heavily in the media since the 9/11 attacks.
Right.
We read it every day in the newspaper. The concept is still a little bit blurred,
Right.
and people have different understandings of it, and it's hard to determine what exactly it means. Because it can take so many different shapes and forms.
Yes, the shapes and forms. The degree of terrorism is also an interesting question, because if you think about it, that's damaging public property.
Yeah.
Then you could include everyone who's at the end spraying a graffiti on the wall. And this is a difficult question, because at the end, every act against the state or the society is a direct attack of the order.
Yeah, but then we are again with the overuse of terrorism.
Yeah, it is definitely. I mean, but if you bomb a building, an empty building, but a huge building, it would be considered, or at least by the public, considered as a terrorist attack, without involving human deaths.
Right.
But still, the definition. I think that the UN definition of terrorism in some resolution basically defined it as act of violence that is directed at the government or the system itself with induce fear in the public. I mean, that's the main goal of terrorism. Mostly is to create public fear.
Yeah.
And then pressure governments to, capitulate and, just comply to whatever the terrorist organization or the terrorists are asking from them. But now I completely lost my point.
Get lost in terrorism.
Yeah, however, it's hard to define.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we agree. Like the definitions are not easy to make, but yeah, there are different forms of terrorism. Now the question, like, when I say terrorism, which event does come to your mind, or when do you say, yeah, that was terrorism? I've seen that, or I read the news about that, or the first act of terrorism that comes to mind?
First,
or in general, any acts of terrorism that come to your mind?
Obviously, when everyone thinks about 9/11.
Agree?
The first thing that pops into your mind.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Plenty of things that
I would
think about.
also say 9/11.
Yeah.
Did you actually know that most of people know what they did on 9/11?
Yeah.
On this day, I mean, it's some kind. The whole day stuck in the memory.
Exactly. Yeah, I can tell you exactly what I did. Yeah.
When did you put on the TV? Saw the first time the pictures, couldn't believe it.
Right.
And yeah, then you found out that the new century started kind of bad.
True. Now the question is, how did, like, we take this example, how did you handle it? How did you handle the news? And then later on, how should we handle terrorism as like terrorist attacks in general? Like, what's the right reaction to terrorism? But first, how did you react when you heard about the terrorist attacks?
Me personally, I was still young at that time.
Right.
How long ago? Like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
In my teenage, and I remember I first heard the news on the radio. I was driving in the car, sitting in the back of the car. My mom was driving, and I at that point didn't know what the World Trade Center was.
Oh, okay.
I remember that, and because of, I don't know, like, there was kind of a trend in Europe at that time that was opposed to America's internationalist agenda, spreading their influence out into the world and so on. And my initial reaction, I remember that, and I regretted it later, but my initial reaction was like to say, yeah, that's a logical consequence of the way the United States behaved at that time. But I didn't know, the dimension of what had happened, and I personally also regret saying that and stating that. But later on, when I saw the TV pictures, obviously, I recognized how huge the attack was, and then shock or whatever you. I think everyone just sat there and looked at the pictures. The pictures,
couldn't believe it, right? Yeah.
New news coming in all the time.
Yeah.
For me, I basically was on this day kind of excited what is going to happen the next days.
Okay.
Because even in this time, I already understand that actions like this always causes reactions.
Right.
And for me, I was together with a friend in this time, and we watched it together. We were basically, not so sure what's going to happen next.
Right.
Because this dimension of international communication on this level was before not there.
Yeah.
You never saw that it was called, the whole world is fighting against something.
Right.
And this was the first time when actually the idea came up, the whole world fights terrorism. From every country is just fighting terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
And this was kind of really exciting to see.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole world together against the bad people. And the question, like, did we fight like the right way? And is there a right way to fight? And did it work out?
I must say there were not many terror attacks in Western country in the last 10 years, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. Normally, I would expect that there would be a lot more.
Yeah.
So somehow I think that these measures which are taken are successful.
Okay.
I mean, the last bombings in Boston, these were two students which were kind of not suspicious in the normal definition of a terrorist.
Okay.
And also,
go on. That is the main advantage of any terrorist organization or any terrorist that you don't, they are not visible as terrorists. They can blend into society pretty easily.
Yes. Say hello.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear us?
Oh, hi. Where is from? RIC?
Yes, International College, Rangsit, Thailand. Where are you from?
Where's the college?
In Bangkok.
Bangkok?
Yep.
You guys don't look like Thai people.
we don't look like Thai people. That's right.
This is why it's called International College.
Yeah, that's great.
Interact, come on.
All right.
I'm a media.
Again?
I'm a media.
Arabia. Huh?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Nice to be connected with you.
All right. We are discussing the topic of terrorism.
Terrorism, right.
All right. If you have anything, if you have anything to add, anytime. I don't hear anything anymore.
Yeah.
Are there terrorists in Bangkok?
Good question. Do we have terrorists here in Bangkok? Actually, before you answer, I have the news. Actually, that's what I wrote down. The newspaper said like 2 weeks ago, Thailand is the #1 country in Asia to be most likely victim to terrorist attacks and 4th in the world.
Due to the situation in the southern provinces.
And because it's so easy to travel through Thailand, to go into Thailand or out of Thailand.
Yeah.
And so the FBI stated first place in Asia is Thailand. So yeah, what do you think about that?
I don't know if you have heard about that, but around Christmas last year, there was this thing going on with, I believe, supposedly sponsored by Hezbollah from Lebanon.
Okay.
That was an allegation put forward by the Israeli government, saying that Hezbollah is trying to support terrorist attacks or fund terrorist attacks on Israelis living abroad.
Oh, okay.
Or on diplomats, and there were like certain, but it is not completely sure, whether that is constructed by the Israeli intelligence, Mossad, and so on.
Okay.
We cannot really tell. However, 3 of them were then made out to be in Bangkok.
Right.
And there was this crazy news that they were building a bomb in their hotel room.
Okay.
And it went off in there while they were in there. And one of the guys then ran out on the street bleeding, and he was trying to get a taxi cab.
All right.
And the taxi driver just, passed by but didn't stop. And then it went like into a crazy police chase, and they were throwing around grenades and whatever. So that was a very real threat at that time. And I remember that then New Year, they toughened the security measures in around, Siam,
Right.
Aragon, and so on.
Right. Yeah. So yeah,
There is terrorism in Bangkok.
there is terrorism in Bangkok. How? When? What? Yeah, more.
I don't really know. I mean, the last time I...
Or do you
Is
feel?
your college?
Please again?
Is your college a boy college?
A boy college? No, it's not.
I mean, there are no girls?
Yes.
Yes, there are.
A lot of girls.
Where are they?
They
Talk to them. Come on.
they study right now.
Let's say, what should I doing?
We're
Are you
discussing.
students?
We're students here.
So we're not really like girlfriend or something? Like you were a band?
Please?
Excuse me?
Are there no girls in the class?
Yeah, there are.
Where are they? All them? Come on.
They are not here right now. You have to check back later. Next time. Next time, more girls for you. All right?
Who's the guy talking about the camera?
Huh?
Again.
The guy talking about the camera?
No.
That guy?
Yeah, there is someone.
Who's that?
Who's that?
Who's that?
Yes, nicely.
Also no girl. I'm so sorry to disappoint you. Also no girl. It's kind of like no girl thing today because the topic about terrorism is too serious for most of the girls.
So what is with you?
Oh, yeah.
Is the topic terrorism too serious for you?
And where are you from?
Arabia.
Here's
Arabia.
terrorism. Let me guess. Music?
Music.
Music? That's not.
Oh.
Yeah, we right now try to get the terrorism topic since it's just happened a few weeks ago, and we try to get the ideas of everyone about that. Do you have any take on that? Any
Do you guys
ideas?
know the real cause of terrorism?
What? Korean toys?
I didn't get it.
What causes terrorism?
What? Come again?
Do you guys know the real cause of terrorism?
The real cause.
The real
Ah,
cause.
yes.
What's the real cause of
What's
terrorism?
the real cause of terrorism?
What is your opinion?
Poverty, I don't know, stuff like that.
Poverty. Yeah. So what's the cause for terrorism?
Poverty.
Why are there terrorist attacks?
I would
Where is
say
really from? Russia?
no. Germany.
Germany.
Yes.
Why did you do Thailand, man?
Studying.
Because it's a great college here.
There.
You know how long the German summer is?
Yeah.
Yeah. You still go there.
It is.
Indeed, that's why the Germans are here.
Right.
Natürlich also for the great education.
Exactly, great college here with serious topics. So, but good question. What's the cause of terrorism? Like you guys, what's the cause of terrorism?
I remember the book said something like this. That it is basically a political action.
Okay, yeah.
Because you're trying to influence policies with it. So I think if someone wants to change policies and he runs out of possibilities how he can reach his target,
Yeah.
he will consider terrorist act.
All right. You agree?
Yeah, and another point is the unequal distribution of capabilities or power.
Yeah.
So if you don't have, if you're not in a position of power, or you don't have an army behind you, or any ways to influence, ways to influence society,
Right.
then it is an alternative form of warfare.
All right.
And warfare is always conducted with a certain intention.
Right.
So if you run out of means to pursue that, or if you face a way stronger opponent, then terrorism or like guerrilla warfare and so on are alternative forms of joining the battle.
All right.
But I would distinct between terrorism and guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, there are differences, obviously, because guerrilla warfare targets soldiers. You don't target civil population, but still it is a form of alternative warfare. You don't go to the battlefield. I mean, even in general warfare, this doesn't happen because you don't reveal your what you're gonna do, your tactics and but still it is alternative and therefore comparable to terrorism because it's also an alternative way.
All right.
All right.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
See you next time with girls. Yeah, but oh no, sorry.
Yeah, then we come to a pretty good, interesting thing. How was the reaction to terrorism? Now after about a decade of anti-terrorist measures,
Right.
Do you think the security thinking of the people has changed?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes. I believe that the terrorist attacks committed over the last 10 years and 20 years had an impact a psychological impact on people, definitely. They read it every time they're scared. If you go to the United States, I'm sure they are really, the concept has completely changed.
And there's another question I might add, and we continue. Does something need to happen in your current environment to make you change? Or are you also more aware of security and everything? Like, I mean, example here in Thailand, in Bangkok, when you go somewhere to a mall, to a subway, whatever, they search your bag. At least they make you open it, but then it's like, okay, go away.
Yeah.
So do you feel secure, more secure? Are you more concerned about it?
When I'm in Bangkok, I'm more afraid of the traffic, because this is a much higher risk to die.
Okay, I agree on that, but let's stick to the terrorism. But yeah, I agree on that.
I would say, like I said, it has had a psychological impact. People are more aware of the possibilities.
Right.
And I mean, that basically is the goal of terrorists. That's what they want to achieve. They want to achieve public attention, media attention, and spread fear, spread the news, and spread their message, their intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And what I don't really get is how they think they're gonna get to a point where the system or governments back down. Won't happen anyway, but at least they trying it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I agree on that. It's like, hey, we threaten you, we have terrorist attacks, and then you back down. Of course not, I will fight back stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. But then, like, when you go out here with all the security checks and everything, do you feel secure here? Or because, like, for me, the question arises because, for me, the security checks are a little ridiculous. And that's why I say maybe it needs to happen in your close environment, like in Thailand, and then they will start to take it more serious. Because right now it's a joke.
Yeah, but I'm not really in favor of, I don't know, some kind of public surveillance with security guards around every corner. Then I rather face the threat, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I want to know, right. So how about you? You okay with like, hey, let me see your back, or you say, come on?
I honestly don't mind, because I mean, if it's in fact a policy of government to do this, or the policy of a shopping mall to do this, they can do this if they feel safer. But I don't feel safer through this. But as I said, I'm more worried about the traffic than about terrorist attacks. So searching my bag is not smaller my worries.
Okay, so you say whatever, have a look, I don't care, but I don't feel safer by doing that because they don't look closely.
What do you then think about, like, camera surveillance all over the place in bigger cities? Wouldn't you mind?
I would say the cameras are not only good for terrorism, but for crime in general. I mean, if you look how the crime rate of public places, especially in tourist areas, all over the world go down with places surveillance by cameras. The argument that this is cutting the privacy, I don't really agree on it, because it's a public place.
Okay.
And the public can take measures to protect itself, and if it thinks that this helps a lot, they can do it.
I'm so sure you disagree with that.
I do disagree.
So, why?
First of all, I don't want... I feel even, in public you have a certain degree of private rights. For example, if somebody comes up to me with a camera and wants to take a picture of me, it is actually, I want to be asked about that. I feel I don't want people to take pictures of me or videotapes of me all the time, and be able to retrace everything I do in public, If I just go for a run or whatever, if I want to cheat on my girlfriend and go, no. I feel you have a certain, you also should enjoy a certain degree of private rights wherever you are. I don't know, that is then hard to explain, but it is just a feeling I have that if we go into that direction, how far will it go? And how secure, again, is then the system to, you know, ensure people's rights?
This is a good question, but the thing is, we are not talking on someone randomly who's taking your pictures and everything. We're talking about a government who already has information no one else has about you. I mean, do you give your tax details to any stranger? No, the government already has the position of knowing, of having the right to know things about people.
And on the other hand, if it might help to reduce terrorism, for example?
To reduce terrorism is a problem, but it was a lot easier to catch the people at the Boston bombings.
To prevent it, yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, but then I think in Boston, right, they identified the guys on some security cameras or something like that. So,
and a funny story is that the mother of the two boys, she's now back in Chechnya, living there, but she spent some time in the United States also. And she stole something from a shopping mall once. And got arrested for it because she stole stuff worth $1,000, clothes or makeup, I have no idea. She's Muslim, so clothes, something. And the tape that, you know, which the police was able to find out who the attackers were, was exactly from this, not the same store, but from the same brand, shopping brand or whatever. That, you know.
Interesting.
So they got caught twice by the same surveillance company.
Well done then.
But I mean, imagine what would happen if they wouldn't have caught them so fast through the video surveillance. How many innocent people you think would be, observed by the police just to find out that it is? They would even abuse more privacy rights by not having the public pictures.
Yeah, that's the next question I have. It's very good because, like, before they actually caught the guy, before they identified the two guys, they had many people in custody. When there was this, I'm not sure if you read it, but in the internet, a lot of rumors about like some random people just standing close by where it happened, or they just left and they had a hoodie. They're like, oh, that's the guy, and then they identified him and said, hey, he's living there and he's studying there, and they got threaded and they got calls and whatever. So yeah, how to handle this?
As I said, public places are different to private places. And at the end, if you think how much information you give to your smartphone, to your apps, which are the thing that a random company knows already when you cheat on your girlfriend. When you go to a place, say a private company already knows.
You know, but it's just another aspect of a similar issue. I also don't think that information you share through, let's say, on the telecommunication networks or whatever, it still should enjoy privacy rights. It shouldn't be. I don't think that it, like, state institutions should be able to randomly have a general surveillance on anyone without suspicions, and you cannot have like a public suspicion, you know.
I mean, now it's a question. The government. The thing is, the government has to be able to react in all kinds of ways to terrorism. Imagine a situation when the government is running out on options or actions against terrorism. What would happen? There would be just terrorism. Because the government cannot react to this. Then you would have a situation like the mafia. Then we would have a situation like in Germany, the Nazi party, which started as criminals at the beginning. You you need a government with teeth at the end. Because a democracy which cannot defend itself will not survive. And this is something.
I think that's like this topic, privacy versus security, is something that is like, I mean, all the time in discussion, and you can't really satisfy everybody. So it's hard to find the level.
The level, yeah. And I think like the differences in opinion also within the policymakers themselves and so on is mostly defined by how they balance these issues.
Right.
How they balance liberal ideas against conservatives, and how they balance privacy against.
Right. I think, from my opinion, but you can say it's totally wrong, but from my opinion, like when it comes to privacy versus regulations and observation, it's like the worst thing that usually happens is if there happens something like an attack or a crime or something, then if the government reacts like out of the hit, like within 1 or 2 days, said okay, we changed this rule, and
yeah.
So that's the worst thing actually.
Yeah. Without proper analysis or anything.
Exactly. I think that's actually what the terrorists, like you said, what they want to.
And at the end, these are the really consequences of terrorism for me. Actually, I'm not really into the consequences of the attack or the American presence. At the end, I'm facing less privacy rights through these attacks. Exactly. And this is the end thing which affects me. And people, I think, in the most countries.
Of course, but that's probably not the goal of the terrorists, to cut your privacy, because I think they... Do you think they would care about that?
But it's nice that now we have a more intense talk about privacy than we had 20 years ago.
Okay.
We have nearly every news about personal information involves privacy rights today.
True.
And this discussion was before not there.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, the terror attacks made the West work on itself more than work on its foreign relations.
That's actually an interesting way of seeing it. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I mean that it is a direct effect or consequence of the terrorist attacks, that people invoke harsher security state and so on. I agree, perfectly agree. Like you said, I'm not sure if it is really the intention behind it.
Right.
I think the intention rather is to, spread so much fear that people, or that the public opinion shifts in terms of that they, let's say in the case of Islamic fundamentalism, Islamic fundamental terrorism, that within Western societies or the United States, kind of reasoning in public opinion occurs that people say, all right, maybe we just should really pull out of everything, and maybe we are really not value-based enough, and maybe that is. But I have no idea how they think they're going to accomplish this kind of reasoning through violence. I think it's impossible.
Actually, I don't think that just pulling out even works. I mean, we had in Africa the situation that all colonial powers withdraw from these places. And at the end, Europe is still blamed for everything what's happened now. Mm-hmm. As soon as they intervene in Mali or everywhere, it's some kind of, still a shadow. Okay. And this would happen with these countries too, because when America would leave a region or a country, in my opinion, they would leave a power hole, an emptiness of power, which will be thought about in the future by the regional people.
Of course it will, but the point is, if you talk about the colonial period, I mean, first of all, European imperialism was a European idea, and they went there, and that is the main problem, that they then pull out and leave a power vacuum and so on. That is a consequence of that they went there, and there's the problem.
But the straight up fact that they are there and we can maybe change the future but not the past should give us not the option to just say, okay, withdraw and everything will be like you never have been there. They have been there, they have been influencing these places.
But before we drift away into the colonial time and things like it, even so it's quite interesting, the effect of course, but let's just keep it like a little bit more to the point, and since we're already like half an hour on air, we try to not make it too long. But I have some more questions, of course. Like before we talked about like what is terrorism, and then we said like there are casualties or maybe even public places, right? Now, what is like is there some terrorism without actually destroying something? I was thinking about like North Korea when they say like, hey, we're having the nuclear power now, we can like destroy everybody.
There's, like,
I mean, it could be just plain stupid, of course.
Yeah, like we said in the beginning, terrorism itself, maybe it also refers to the threat already. is part of terrorism. Therefore, you are also already legally convictable if you just plot, just conspiring. Sorry, is already punishable. But after all, like we said, it is so hard to define, and what happens a lot is that then the international idea of terrorism itself is influenced by what governments want it to be, and obviously I won't name the country, but one country particularly just designates anyone who deviates from their own opinion in the end as terrorists. It can be then a government from North Korea, terrorists, Islamic organization, terrorists, whoever whatever fits them is a terrorist.
President with the wrong middle name.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, all right. We talked about it already, but I would like to have some more specific ideas on how to avoid. I know we can't really avoid it, but how would you say make it less attractive, or I don't know. Take the power away from terrorism. How to do that? And why actually do people really act in terrorist manner? We understand why certain groups use terrorism, but the people who actually pull the trigger in the end, why do they do that? And how then, after that, how can we avoid it?
Somehow I would guess false promises.
Yeah.
I think they believe in something, and they believe that something's going to happen after they do this.
Okay.
So I actually think when someone does a terrorist attack, like a suicide bombing or something, they believe that this has a huge impact. So it's basically a need to show that these terror attacks will not have a deep impact. We have to, if politicians or everyone just makes it possible that terror attacks happen, but they are not destroying the whole liberal idea of democracy or the constitution, for example, then it shows that it's not worth to do terrorism attacks, because you will not change policies, because the policies will continue even with you.
I now have something to add. I think I understand the idea and I completely agree on that, but I think the people who pull the trigger in the end, they don't understand that, and they probably they promise, they say, hey, if you do this suicide bombing, for example, then your family will prosper forever. I don't know, I'm just assuming now. So that's why I say I understand the idea, but I don't think that showing that it won't work will affect the people who actually execute it.
I believe it can, in terms of if you, for example, deprive terrorists of the media attention that they get, or these incidents get.
Yeah.
If there would be a complete media ban on reporting about terrorist attacks, I'm sure it would decrease because the effects would be gone.
Yeah. So do you think that would be a measure to?
And particularly with these suicide bombings, which is a very extreme case, because to imply also taking your own life, that needs some guts, to be honest. And I believe then we can go into the discussion about what impact religion has particularly on people's minds, because there may have been cases of suicide attacks, or also some kind of protest involving your own death voluntarily or whatever, but still majorly it is this kind of scenario is concerned with religion.
I agree completely, yeah, of course.
This brings me to an interesting question. If a monk in Tibet burns himself, is this an act of terrorism?
I'm sure some people would like the definition to be like that.
No, but it's terrifying the people around him.
It is.
He in my I think it's an act of policy changing. This is what they try to act. So actually, even the self-burning of a Tibetan monk,
in China in this case,
which is terrifying the people around him, would be an act of terrorism.
Since partly the definition might apply, but because you don't harm anybody or anything else,
it's more
yourself.
like a scream for attention.
It is, it is like if you know, hunger strikes and so on can also terrify people.
Yeah, I agree.
But they must, you have to draw a line in somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And terrorism, like you said, can take like so many forms. Cyber terrorism, I think you might know something about that.
Right. So there are many forms, true. But let's just back to like how to handle it. Like you said, like a media ban, for example. Do you really think that might be possible, or
possible? No.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we invoke free press, free expression rights, and so on.
What would be like possible changes that we could like do in order to prevent?
Then we go to the general talk of try to tackle the root causes.
But yet it didn't. Like, then what's the root cause? What I mean, we
all social and inequality. I mean, it is, I would say, characteristical of terrorists as such that they often don't come from a social background or any background that has a lack of perspective in life. I think that is, you could say, almost generally true.
Kind of like a dead end, and then it's like the way out.
It is, So if you would, but that is also something that can only take place very slowly, and it won't avoid terrorist attacks in the near future and so on. But improving social equalities globally, trying to back away from extreme neoliberal, like kind of market imperialist ideologies in the West, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we don't have the solution, but I mean, right now, like you said in the beginning, the world is fighting terrorism, and the world is going after terrorist leaders, and they take them out eventually after some time, but it still doesn't stop, right? So, like, what's your take on how to change it? Make the world a better place in the end. A bit corny.
Maybe if the foreign relations of the powerful states, now including not only Western countries, also China, the upcoming South American, they have to somehow learn to not, how do you define it? I'm sorry to take a little bit.
No worries.
To export the things which makes the country strong.
Okay.
Not export, for example, like ideas, for example, just taking resources from a country or trying to influence a political area, or even just have a different course than this country there. I think these countries should more think what they did right in the past, and should more try to develop this. I mean, before most of these countries had democracy, they had many steps before this. Democracy didn't came overnight, like it does not, like it does now in Egypt and or other places where the Americans or Western countries are accused to be influencing. If they basically would just allow them to prosper under the same conditions or with the same tools we had in the past. For example, give countries free press, people will hear more than one opinion, they will not radicalize. Okay. If someone has just one opinion, he might think this is the only true way and he will radicalize. Give a person 10 opinions and you start to judge them.
Alright, then you could of course argue that people try to influence the opinions and that there are still like the people who pay for opinions and whatever, but in general I agree on that idea.
But I believe it's also, that is, highly subjective. What you believe made your country strong and what you believe is the right way not necessarily applies to everyone. You know, that is the kind of European sense of superiority in some way, saying that because of the Enlightenment and because of our great past, we are kind of, you know, we have to spread it. We are, what is that called? We are involved, no, I don't know.
Yeah, but and this might then also cause like the trouble, because then the other country like says, hey, come on, we also have our own culture. We're here also for centuries, and in the past it might have been all awesome.
And like you said, you know, talking about democracy and so on, the democratic process, I mean, Europe went through so many steps, you know, and now it is completely skipped in other parts of the world, where, you know, from one day to the other, you just implement democracy, institutionalize it, but they just missed, people in those areas just missed out on all those steps in between. And often, democracy is just another tool to spread free market capitalism. First of all, the West wants these countries to open economically. True. Often that is much easier if you have an institutionalized democracy. However, if not, they don't care. Look at Saudi Arabia is making great business with the United States on oil. They don't care if it's an autocratic regime or not at all.
Yeah, when you look at what happens in Bahrain, for example, and nobody cares because the economic relations are great. Yeah.
I would say there, what other options these countries would choose? Should they start to, they cannot not influence these countries. By interaction, economically, you're traveling there, you interact with them. Now you have two choices. Export something you know which works, or think about something new and just try to influence them in this way you think which might work. So which option would be the more safer, because it's dealing about countries?
Like when I prepared a little bit, and I also read some statements from some politicians, like example, the President of the United States, he said, I don't know, like last year or something, he said we need to reach our hand to those poor states, or the states who think they are, they have problems with the wealthy or the more Western states, should go to each other, try to communicate more and try to understand each other. But if there are acts of terrorism, we will fight them with all power we have. That's what he said. It's this great idea to say, yeah, but how should we go to reach out to each other? How should we do that? Those are the questions.
The option would be give the hand to friends and fight your enemies. I mean, the thing is, terrorism will never stop. It did not, never in the whole past since human exists. I would say terrorism is a problem. So we should not try to find a final solution against terrorism. We should try to win little battles.
Okay.
Win one little battle and the next one, and look, maybe one day it will turn out pretty good and we don't even know what we did.
I think one more thing you could say is a sentence I've heard from, I think, Noam Chomsky once, is, you know, what one person thinks is a terrorist is somebody else's freedom fighter. So it is in many cases, you know, often secession movements use forms of terrorism.
Right.
Like, let's say, what the Palestinians use, or what the Hamas has used, or the PLO has used in trying to achieve independence, is termed terrorism by one side, while a lot of Palestinians, or the great majority of the Arab world, wouldn't agree with that. On the other hand, when the state of Israel was founded, the movement under Menachem Begin used terrorist means. They attacked the King David Hotel in Jerusalem in order to liberate the country from the British, and because they didn't agree with the terms the British had on how to divide and so on. But these people are celebrated as heroes. in Western society, in Israel, in the United States, and wherever, because they reached the independence, they achieved something. So it's always a point of view and definition.
But I would say the thing is, the winner can create something, the loser cannot create something. If they have a conflict like this and one side is winning, sure, they will brand the other one as terrorist because they just destroyed. But the winning side is creating a system which might be sustainable. And this is why terrorism, which creates something, has to be judged different than terrorism, which is just destruction. Even if it's difficult to do.
If it creates something,
I mean, this is why I would say why some people are defined as heroes and some are defined as terrorists.
Yeah, and the outcome, right, of course. So, it's like, I like the discussion because we see that it's really hard to see eye on eye and have like this one solution, because there is none, of course. Yeah, but since we are really running out of time, it would be awesome to talk a little more about that. And next time we should have a bigger group, I think, with more nations involved. It would be even more interesting, I think. But yeah, like the wrap up, like always, like your final remarks before we turn off.
I believe after our discussion, the question remains: what is terrorism?
Right.
The word as such, actually, you could, in my opinion, trash the whole word now, come up with a new word with a proper definition, with something you can, discuss about and know what we're talking about, and not like, because it's something everyone has a different opinion about, and everyone, sees it differently. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, that applies to so many different. What is a liberal? Some people think this is liberal, some people think and so on.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I would say that is the main point. Maybe we just came here to tell people that it is hard to define.
But this would make even people think about it, so then that's a good thing actually.
Yeah.
If that actually happens, if people think more about what is terrorism. It's your final statement, wrap up.
Terrorism is not a problem, it's a thing we have to live with.
Alright, because we can change it.
Because it will be stay forever there, and if it runs out one day, it will come back. Because it's not something you can kill.
Alright. It's actually a sad ending, but sad endings are quite often the best ones because it makes people think about what we talk, and I hope it will stick to our minds. I'm quite sure we will come back with a similar topic soon. So far, thank you for joining, thank you for watching.
Thanks for having us here.
And see you next time.